The meeting hasn't started yet, and you've already apologized twice. You moved your chair an inch and said sorry to no one in particular. A coworker walked past without even glancing at you, and the word was already leaving your mouth. Nobody complained. Nobody was waiting for it. Complained. That word alone tells you something about how your brain has wired the situation. You preempt the blame before anyone has even thought to assign it. You soften the edges of your own existence so nobody feels inconvenienced by you being there. Sorry, but exits your mouth before a single thought arrives. Mouth moving before thought arrives. That is not a politeness habit, and it is not a personality quirk. Psychologists call this the fawn response, a stress reflex where your nervous system learns that appeasement is the fastest path to safety. It was forged long before this office, this job, or this meeting room existed. And now it fires automatically every time your brain detects even the faintest signal of possible disapproval. The apology was already gone before your brain caught up. This is not a bad habit you developed from being careless. It runs deeper than manners or politeness training. Something in your nervous system learned that getting ahead of blame felt safer than waiting for it. Nervous systems that learned to scan for threat became very good at one specific trick. They fire the apology before the threat even fully forms. It worked once or many times in a place where conflict had real consequences. The office is not that place anymore, but the system does not know that yet. The system psychologists call the fawn response is not weakness, and it is not people-pleasing in the shallow sense. It is a survival mode that routes conflict away from the self before conflict can escalate. Ghostie steps into the meeting room already holding the apology in the outstretched hand. The mask is on, the smile is wide, and the preemptive sorry lands before anyone in the room has formed a single thought about blame. The fawn response is not politeness. It is a survival strategy your nervous system learned long before you ever entered an office. When early environments made conflict feel dangerous, the brain found a shortcut. Apologize first, stay safe. That reflex followed you into every meeting room you have ever sat in. Shortcut responses rewire over years into automatic patterns that run without your permission. A raised voice in the meeting room, a sigh from a manager, an unanswered message. Each one triggers the same ancient alarm. Your body sends the apology before your mind has processed whether blame was even directed at you. This is not weakness. This is an overloaded threat detection system doing its job too well. Detection systems that fire constantly drain the body of the energy needed for actual work. Every preemptive apology costs something. A small withdrawal from a reservoir that was never designed to run on empty. Over months and years, the cumulative debt of fawning shows up as exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. The system learned to protect you, and in doing so, it slowly spent you. Reflexive apology is not politeness.
You're fired!
It is a
I'm
fawn
so
response
scared.
in action.
Get out now! Make
The
me.
nervous system has already calculated the threat before the conscious mind catches up. Someone raises their voice slightly and your mouth moves before your brain decides anything. That automatic word is the body trying to prevent punishment by offering submission first. Submission offered before a threat is even confirmed has a compounding cost. Every preemptive apology reinforces the internal belief that your presence itself requires justification. The brain logs each incident as evidence. You are the problem that needs managing. Over time, this pattern does not stay contained at difficult meetings. It becomes the operating system. The operating system does not clock out at 5. Ghostie carries the apology reflex out through the office door and into every room that comes after. A friend cancels plans, and the first words formed are an apology for having been inconvenienced at all. The body trained at work keeps performing at home. The mask stays on long after the building is behind you. The apology was never really about the mistake. It was a preemptive shield, issued before any threat even arrived. The fawn response trains the nervous system to treat other people's neutral moods as incoming danger. Saying sorry first felt like control, but it was fear wearing the costume of politeness. Politeness and fear use identical words, but they come from completely different places in the body. Real politeness is a choice made from a calm baseline. The fawn response is a reflex fired from a threat baseline. Every automatic sorry reinforces the brain's false equation. Silence equals danger, and appeasement equals safety. The pattern does not dissolve on its own because the brain keeps receiving the reward of momentary relief each time. The reward the brain chases is not approval. It is the brief disappearance of anticipated threat. That distinction changes everything about how the behavior is addressed. Chronic fawning is not a personality flaw, and it is not weakness. It is an old nervous system solution running on outdated threat data. The office became the new environment where those old rules kept firing without anyone ever issuing the original order. The fawn response rewired your nervous system to treat silence as a threat. Every pause in a conversation became a cue to fill with apologies. Your body learned that preemptive sorry kept the danger away. That pattern did not form because you are weak, it formed because it once worked. Until the cost of it quietly exceeded the protection it offered. Every apology you never owed became a small deposit into someone else's account of your worth. The fawn response kept you safe in a world that punished honesty and rewarded compliance. Recognizing the pattern is the first real interruption. Reflexive apologies are a trained response, not a character trait. The first strategy is a 1-second pause before any sorry leaves your mouth. That pause is not silence. It is the moment the brain asks whether an apology is actually owed. Inserting that gap consistently begins to rewire the automatic fawn reflex over time. The second free strategy uses written tracking to make the invisible visible. Every time an unnecessary apology escapes, a single tally mark goes in a small notebook. Counting without judgment creates distance between the behavior and identity. Patterns appear within days, and patterns are the beginning of conscious choice. Patterns found through tracking reveal the specific triggers that ignite the fawn response fastest. A trigger identified as a trigger that loses some of its automatic power. Awareness alone does not eliminate the reflex, but it converts an unconscious act into a visible one. Visible behavior is the only kind a person can actually change. Changing a visible behavior begins with a single substitution, not a complete overhaul. One replaced sorry with a neutral acknowledgement is a real neurological event. The brain records that the threat did not materialize after the reflex was withheld. Each recorded safety event makes the next pause marginally easier. The pause itself is the action axis in practice. Before the automatic apology escapes, a single held breath interrupts the reflex loop. Ghostie places one hand flat on the desk, grounded, not grasping. The nervous system registers the pause as a moment of choice rather than compulsion. Reflex does not mean broken. The fawn response was a solution once built quietly by a nervous system that needed to survive something. Carrying it into every conference room, every corridor bump, every unread email was never a character flaw. It was loyalty to a version of safety that the body has not yet been told is no longer required. The nervous system learns slowly, and that is not a failure of will. Each small interruption to the reflex pattern writes a slightly different instruction into the body over time. There is no single moment where the fawn response simply stops. There are only accumulations of smaller moments where it loses a little ground. Next, the moment you stop people-pleasing, they call you difficult.